On the dance floor, on our playlists and on the wall, the art of Michael Jackson comes to Paris. And we take a look at the angles, lines and forms which made up one of the most important movements in 20th century art at a new exhibition on Cubism. He was the first truly global pop phenomenon. Michael Jackson wowed the world with his musical talent, his unique dance moves and his gift for self-reinvention. Alongside the platinum discs and the sold-out arena tours, struggles in his personal life were also part of the mythology surrounding him. Just one of the reasons he inspired and fascinated artists who depicted the singer throughout his career. The exhibition Michael Jackson on the Wall gives us a glimpse of how the king of pop has been immortalised in contemporary art, and I went along to the Grand Palais here in Paris to check it out.
Tenue en cuir, les paillettes.
Gants, veste brillante, blouson noir, pantalon court.
Little Suzy.
Billie Jean. Billie Jean. Billie Jean. Billie Jean. But my lover, baby, I am the one.
Thriller.
Thriller. Thriller.
Thriller. Na 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 na.
He was constantly reinventing himself, his sound, his style, and even his dance moves, which meant that Michael Jackson left his mark on pop music in a way that few artists have ever managed to do. This exhibition, Michael Jackson on the Wall, shows us the different faces of the man behind the mask. Vanessa Disclor, you're the curator of this show. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We see a lot of work here from American artists, but there are also pieces from China, South Africa, France. How do you explain his impact outside of his own country?
Well, I understand Michael Jackson as one of the first global artists, truly global artists, particularly because at the time when he has his first solo albums like Off the Wall and Thriller, MTV also is starting, and MTV, I think, contributed to distributing music on a much broader scale, but also Michael Jackson gave a lot of concerts in many, many places of the world. He was very generous with his live presence in that sense, and I feel he took interest in many different countries and cultures, especially Africa, but also Romania, as one of the works in the show can demonstrate.
And we see that Michael Jackson inspired famous artists like Andy Warhol, David LaChapelle, Kehinde Wiley. But there's a piece of work here by Candice Breitz which focuses more on the effect he had on his fans. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, Candice Breitz did something very particular. She put out a call to fans. She wanted to do something very specific. She wanted to record and film those fans individually singing a cappella the entirety of the album Thriller. So that's what she did, and the installation is 16 of those portraits. And she gave them the freedom to wear the clothes they wanted and dance the way they wanted. So the result is a very generous work, I think very popular in its appeal and quite touching in a way.
The show takes in 3 decades of artwork inspired by the iconic star. And while Michael Jackson's best known for his musical talents, he was also a fan of visual art, collaborating on projects with his friend Andy Warhol, Mark Ryden. The singer approached painter Kehinde Wiley for this final portrait, which stands at the entrance to the show.
What's very interesting about that piece is it was the final commissioned portrait that Michael Jackson made in the final few months of his life. So he actually contacted Kehinde Wiley and they began a collaboration, and sadly it wasn't quite finished when Michael died. But what's interesting is that you see how Michael wanted to be depicted. You see his interest in art history, which Kehinde says was vast. It's based on a Rubens painting, an equestrian portrait of King Philip II on horseback from the Prado in Madrid. And Kehinde said that Michael had such an interest in craft and artistry, he would ask him about the difference in the viscosity of the brushwork in early Rubens versus late Rubens, which even an art historian wouldn't probably think to ask about.
Whether they're trying to dance in his footsteps, tip their hats to some of his signature styles, or just emulate his sound. Artists from the world of pop, R&B and rap all admit they'd like some of the Michael Jackson magic, and that's including musicians Mirren and Dale. Hello.
Hello.
So what do you find so inspiring about Michael Jackson?
I think for me, like, I watched him perform a lot as a kid, not in live, obviously, but on videos, and it was just incredible to see someone move their body so freely. And I think as a kid, I don't know, that just inspired me a lot to be myself.
I think you'd struggle to find anyone in any layer of like the pop music industry that hasn't been massively influenced by Michael Jackson. Like the music, the emotional delivery, the dancing, like the whole package is like, it's like the gold standard of pop music, I think.
And girl, you can't be changed the way I walk, the way I talk, and I cannot explain.
The things I feel for you. Girl, you know it's true.
So true, yeah.
Stay with me, fulfill my dreams, and I'll be all you need.
And it feels so right.
Feels so right.
Search for the perfect love of my life. Oh, and it feels like
Feels like
I finally found the perfect love is mine. Girl, you rock my world, you know you did. And everything I own, I give. And there is love you need to find someone like you to call mine.
The Pompidou Centre here in Paris has an important new show focusing on Cubism, featuring work from the movement's pioneers, Pablo Picasso, Georges Braque and Fernand Léger. It's the first time an entire exhibition has been dedicated to the genre here in France since 1953. Yenna Lee tells us more.
A cubist painting is like a sliding puzzle. It might look like a mishmash of elements, but our brains can read through it and reconstruct the image. Here, two rectangles make a face, and the shadow created by the layering becomes the nose. The musician has her eyes closed and a realistic mouth. In the center of the painting, a diamond, 2 circles and 5 lines. It's enough to hint at a guitar. The men behind this artistic revolution: Pablo Picasso, the prolific Spanish artist with celebrity status, and Georges Braque, the discreet Frenchman with an equally impressive creative force. Together, the duo shocked the art world. By rejecting the conventions of perspective, Picasso and Braque invented a new way of depicting the world around them.
It's the end of traditional imitation, which is completely artificial, and the start of a new form of representation.
The two friends relied on an orthogonal base and added new materials to their canvases. 1912 would be a year of radical inventions. Still life with chair caning became the first collage in the history of art that was made using real objects. Picasso took an oilcloth canvas and made rope into a frame, an avant-garde collage with everyday items.
Braque and Picasso loved using objects that weren't traditionally beautiful. Everyday things, items they found. Apollinaire would say they'd use things they bought for nothing.
Though it might seem banal today, in the early 20th century it was a radical move. In 1912, Braque invented the pasted paper collage technique and reintroduced color into Cubism. One day, he bought wrapping paper and integrated it into his work, blurring the lines between craftsmanship and art. The 3D aspect of the paintings was a revolution in itself. Around the same time, Picasso was working on his cardboard guitars, objects that would later usher in a new era in the history of sculpture.
This next artist is responsible for a revolution of his own. Banksy's work was more likely to be found in city streets than on gallery walls, but that's set to change thanks to a new show in Italy. The exhibition comes weeks after he hit the headlines by partially shredding one of his pieces when it was bought at a London auction. The Mudec Museum in Milan has brought together around 80 examples of the street artist's work, including paintings, prints, photos and videos, although that selection's not been greenlit by the man himself, who is notoriously reclusive. And we're finishing with more iconic imagery thanks to the flair of Polish graphic designers. A new exhibition here in France highlights their talent for visual communication in cinema and theatre posters from the 1950s to the present day. Those pieces are on show at the Échirol Graphic Centre near Grenoble. We'll leave you with a preview. Remember to check out our website for more arts and culture, and you can keep up with Encore on social media too. Stay with us here on France 24. There's more news coming up in just a moment.
Bum 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 bum